Welcome to the final video in our series. This video deals with two aspects of raising teenagers, consequencing them and affirming them, both really important parts of developing a relationship with a teenager. Consequencing is something that you've seen run through all of the videos, and it plays a really important role in your relationship with your teenagers. Consequences are those things that teach young people that there's an outcome to each of their choices. If the outcome's positive, that's a great thing. If they've made a choice that's bad, there needs to be some kind of more negative outcome, because that's the way it is in real life. Consequences is that often they come from elsewhere, and so the onus is off you as a parent to be putting consequences on your young person. But your role is to make sure that the young person follows through on the consequences. So for example, if your young person is speeding and they get a ticket, then make sure that they're the ones that pay the ticket, that they follow through on that, that they earn the money to pay it. Don't be like the rescuer parent who would run in there and pay the ticket for the child so that they don't have to feel the impact of that consequence. So there are three different kinds of consequences that I want to talk about, and the first one is those natural consequences. When it comes to natural consequences, we're doing our young people a real service by allowing them to own the consequences, the natural consequences that come their way, rather than rescuing them and trying to minimize the consequence so it has less impact on them. When I talk about natural consequences, the kinds of things I'm talking about are if a young person's doing badly in school, they're not doing their homework and that sort of thing, the natural consequence for that is poorer grades, negative feedback from the teacher. The rescuer parent won't let the young person own that. They'll be on the phone to the teacher and asking for second chances for their young person and complaining and just not letting the young person own it. Another thing is if a young person's on a team and they're not showing up on time, which is one of the rules of the team, so they get benched. That's a natural consequence. Let them own that. Another natural consequence would be if a young person gets drunk, comes home drunk one night, and they have a responsibility the next morning. You can help them own the consequence by making sure that they get up on time at their regular time, not sleeping off their hangover, and recognize what it feels like to have been drinking the night before. A story that I often remember, when my daughter was 16, she came home very, very drunk, and she had also thrown up in her friend's car who had taken the time to drive her home. So not only was she expected to get up first thing in the morning as usual, she also had to clean out her friend's car, and it took a long, long time after that before she even considered drinking again. So I didn't have to do anything except make sure that she got out of bed and owned her responsibilities. And she learned way more from that than my coddling her and letting her sleep in and letting her complain about how she's feeling and that sort of thing. I recognize that some parents are dealing with teenagers who are challenging them way more than your typical teenage type problems. They might be stealing, they might be running away from home, they might be using drugs excessively. They're really into things that are dangerous for them. And there are lots of natural consequences that will help you as a parent to teach them that they need to make better choices for themselves. So what I just want you to do is to be very aware of what the possible natural consequences are to those actions and allow your child to own them. One of the beauties of consequencing is definitely that you don't have to yell and scream. It's just a fact. Geez, I'm sorry that you did that. I guess that means that this is going to happen. And you get to deliver a message that you still care about them and you're prepared to support them, but you care enough about them to let them own what they've done. The second type of consequences are the ones that teenagers create for themselves. In the negotiating video you saw at the end of that, where we said, if this doesn't work out the way we agreed, what should be the consequences to that? And you saw Pam come up with a consequence that seemed reasonable. and one that clearly she would be able to live with. And I think she would own better than if it was an imposed kind of consequence. I have the utmost faith in teenagers to be able to determine fair kinds of consequences for the choice that they've made. And I think the more opportunity you take to ask your teenager for appropriate consequences, the more you'll be impressed with their ability to do that. So as often as possible, get your teenager to name the possibility, the consequence. Definitely when you're negotiating, because that's all part of the negotiation process. One of the things that's really important about consequencing is that the parent follows through on whatever has been determined as an appropriate consequence. If you back off on it or forget about it or don't make your young person follow through with it, then you're teaching a really invaluable lesson. You're teaching exactly the opposite of what you want. And it plays a role in the amount of respect a teenager has for you. So you're serving two purposes by following through. One is that teaching thing where they get to learn for every choice there's an outcome. And the other thing is to maintain some respect between you and the young person. Really, we've said before, inherently a teenager does not want to have no boundaries. They need guidance and guidelines, and that's what consequencing provides. The final kind of consequence is the one that has to be determined by the parent. Usually this is around issues that haven't been predetermined. A young person comes home and you found out that they've done something that's inappropriate or hurtful or just doesn't work for you. And so there has to be a consequence at that time about that particular issue. Let's assume that your young person has come home and you found out that they've done something really inappropriate or something that's hurtful to themselves. They've made a bad choice in some way. And it's not anything that you've ever discussed with them, that you just have that expectation that they wouldn't do that. That calls for some kind of consequence. And you as a parent can be feeling very, very angry about what your young person did. One of the things that I would suggest, rather than giving them a consequence in the heat of the moment, would be to tell them that you're going to think about an appropriate consequence for this and go and take some time and do that. Don't hesitate to ask other people what they think they would do under those circumstances. Try to choose as natural a consequence as possible, one that's as relevant to the incident that your young person was involved in, because then it will be as meaningful as it can be for the young person. Remember, once you've talked to your young person about what the consequence is going to be, make sure that you follow through on it. But the point I'm trying to make is consequences set out in the heat of the moment, and when you're feeling very angry, can often have more impact on you than they can on the young person. So take time to think about it. There's no problem having some space between you and your young person while you think about it. One of the beauties of consequencing is that it gives you an opportunity to show your young person that you care about them without affecting their self-worth or their self-esteem. They have an action, they create a behavior that is not appropriate, and they get a consequence, and there's nothing in delivering the consequence that says you're a bad person, I don't like you. As a matter of fact, delivering consequences can be done in a way that says, I very much care about you. I'm doing this because you're important enough to follow through with. You can constantly be delivering a message that they're valuable young people who made a mistake, and so they accept the consequences. It's no big deal. And as soon as the consequences have been served, it's a finished matter. There's no leftover from it, no resentment, none of that. And that's real life stuff for adults, so it really needs to be real life stuff for young people as well. In conclusion, consequencing serves lots of purposes. It allows you to create boundaries for your young people. It helps them develop as young people into adults, and it gives them a message that you care about them. So it's an integral part of your parenting role. The final part, and my favorite part of this whole parenting thing, is the part where you get to affirm your young person. Affirmation is so important for the young person. And affirmation means speaking to them in a loving, caring kind of way, and using language that says, I love you. Words like, I love you, I respect you, I'm proud of you. A lot of parents begin in teenage years to really focus on the negative stuff, and so we forget that there's lots of positive stuff there. And it's our job as parents to look for all of the positive things that our kids are doing and pointing them out to them. Look for as many opportunities on a day-to-day basis for you to deliver a message verbally to your young people that you care about them. Preface things that you're going to say with them with things like, I respect you and I know that you really do well here. We recognize that you're really strong at this. Make a real concerted effort each day to find 3 or 4 things that you can name for your young person that pleases you or that you're proud of. If you're the type of parent who can't find anything good to say about your young person, you've probably gotten yourself into one of those cycles where there's lots of resentment. And I can tell you that unless that changes, unless you're able to start to find some good things to say about your young person, the young person isn't going to be able to change very much because they're in an environment where there is lots of hostility and resentment. So if you're in that situation, it would be a good time to seek some outside help. Otherwise, for those of us who just forget that our young people need positive things pointed out to them, it's an easy thing to start up again. Watch what their reaction is. Watch how they change as you emphasize the positive rather than concentrate a lot on the negative. You'll be very happy, I suspect, about the changes that you see. So now that you've been through all the videos, the whole program, take out of it what works for you. Don't hesitate to tell your young person that you're going to start negotiating. You're really going to start trying to listen to them because you really want to understand them and have a good relationship with them. Tell them that if you're a person who hasn't followed through on consequences, that you are going to now start following through. Let them see the videos with you if you choose. But there's all kinds of opportunities there to enhance your relationship with your young person. And that, for me, is the most important thing, that we improve our relationships with our young person and value them. So I encourage you to go for it.